So I call Salesa.
Thank you so much, Mr Chair, for this opportunity to make a contribution to the Education Amendment Update Bill. Mr Chair, I would like to make my contribution initially focused on Clause 4, new Section 1A, subsection 4, which continues on from the Honourable Minister's comments on consultation. The new section states now that before issuing a statement under this section, the Minister must consult with those stakeholders in the early childhood and compulsory education sector that he or she considers ought to be consulted. Mr Chair, one of the strongest, most persuasive submissions that the Education and Science Select Committee heard from was from the Children's Commissioner, Andrew Beecroft. And Mr Chair, what he told us was that children have not been consulted for this legislation. He stated, the education system exists for children. Submissions, to this particular act, the most important stakeholders that this bill will affect are our children. So therefore, they should be consulted, and that the best interests of our children should be taken into account. Mr Chair, he came with a submission that included this stop sign. He told us that as a select committee, we should stop with this bill, consult our children, and then come back, ensuring that the voices of the children are heard. I heard what Honourable Minister Hekia Parata said, that there were student, one or two representatives on boards, but there wasn't direct consultation with actual children. Otherwise, the Children's Commissioner would have told us that the children's voices have actually been consulted. Mr Chair, the PPTA and many other submissions also told us that the children's voices are not even heard within this. Kayleen McNee, May Road School, they also made submissions along these lines. One of the submitters, her name's Joanna Fissenden, said that particular groups should be mandatory, that before we go implementing changes to the Education Act, we should consult with particular groups, including children and young people, children with disabilities, Māori and Pacifica children, parents and whānau, proprietors of state integrated schools. Mr Chair, these folks were not consulted, but the point that I'm trying to make, Mr Chair, is the voices of our children not even being heard before we go making the changes, the largest changes over 30 years. Some of the submitters also told us that the UN Conventions on the Rights of the Child, which we as a country have signed up to, are not even considered in this bill. The United Kingdom and the United States, Mr Chair, includes both the United Convention on the Rights of the Child as well as the rights of children with disabilities in their education legislation. We don't even do that, not in this particular bill. And the joint submission from Youth Law Aotearoa, IHC, as well as the Action for Children and Youth Aotearoa, they told us that we should include a separate purpose statement in this bill, which will provide all of us with useful guidance. We know, Mr Chair, that we have signed on to the UN Conventions on the Rights of the Child, but Mr Chair, when in late last year, the UN Committee, pursuant to Article 12 of the Convention, they made repeated calls that we should uphold the rights of our children, especially our children who are marginalised children, and they also named Māori and Pacific children amongst those. Mr Chair, when we don't include the rights of all children, we should really question what we're doing here and passing legislation in haste that doesn't actually address all of our children. I put to the Minister, she has the Education Council. Not only, in my opinion, has the Minister not listened to the majority of the 216 submissions, because when you look at the legislation that we have in front of us and you compare it to the form of the legislation before it went through the Select Committee, there are some changes, but very few changes. Mr Chair, Mr Chair.
Jenny Salesa.
And I'll give you an example, Mr Chair. When you look at what the Education Council recommended to the Honourable Minister, they said that the Minister should include this, and I quote, to provide learning experiences which support children and young people to reach their potential and a system which aims to achieve equitable outcomes for all. Now, the Minister just explained that we don't necessarily need to have equitable outcomes, or indeed all children in the legislation. But why not, Mr. Chair? Why don't we ensure that there is equitable outcome for all of our children? Why not? This government will have us believe that when they put aside $92 measly per student per year to follow the most at-risk kids, that apparently deals with equity, that apparently makes it so that all children across all of New Zealand should have equity of outcomes. Mr Chair, inequality is an issue that has not been addressed under this government. In fact, it's gotten worse. When you look at, say, areas like South Auckland, where I represent students from, we know that the majority of the schools in South Auckland are low decile, decile 1 to decile 3, in fact. The majority of Pacific students, close to 70% of Pacific students, they attend decile 1 to decile 3 schools. Mr Chair, it is to me a bit of a farce that this government would say putting aside $92 per student per year is somehow going to make outcomes more equal for all students. $92 doesn't even buy a whole set of uniform.
I'm just looking at the themes to the member. The equity funding is not part of this, so just can you just concentrate on the theme one? Jenny Salesa.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I will move on to Clause 4, Section 1, Subsection A, Subsection 3. It sets out the objectives of the education system, and Mr Chair, a lot of the submissions supported that the achievement and learning of children and young people should be central in this particular bill. Comet in Auckland proposed that we should have a fourth objective. I do not see this fourth objective in the new bill. What they recommended was, and I quote, to work towards equity of outcomes across ethnicities, genders and socioeconomic groups at all levels of the system for education and learning. Mr Chair, this is not currently covered. NZEI, in their submission, they stated that the objectives should also include equity. And Mr Chair, I heard the Minister earlier on saying that equity is not included, but again I say, why not? Why is equity not actually included in the wording of the Act? It should be. Thank you, Mr Chair.
Mr Chair.
The Honourable Hidia Parata.
Mr Chair, I just